Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. The model maniac is in the cockpit. He's wearing his clown wig because he made some very bad decisions with his Rainmaker cars last week. So buckle up. It's going to be some bumpy advice once again this week. However, sitting right beside me in the cockpit, co-pilot Joel, aka Draft Master Flex, the man, the myth, the multi-millionaire, basically, after taking down a round 4 showdown last week at the PGA Championship and making some bougie bucks, is flying alongside me. And he is going to be making sure that we land safely, take off smoothly, and everything else in between. So, Joel, how are you doing on this fine Monday evening?
Yeah, it's always a good Monday after a big win, of course. So I'm doing pretty well.
Win.
Pretty big win. But I'm excited. I'm excited for another good week. This is like the core prime season of golf, right? We are in the swing of things, which is important for this reason. Like during the beginning and end of the season, when there's still some good tournaments, more often, the guys are taking off tournaments. The good guys play once a month typically. Now is where we start to see more frequency, more consistency of guys playing, which makes it better for us when we're handicapping because we know guys. We're seeing numbers more consistently. We can see what guys are in good form and have more confidence than, when you're looking at recent form and a guy's, third tournament ago was 4 months ago. It's hard to tell how recent form to adjust. Right now, we have kind of better data to go off of. So now's the time. Now's the heat of the season for both DFS and obviously Rainmakers.
Yeah, I was busy taking a look at some future events for the future flight section of the show. And it goes Travelers, Rocket Mortgage, John Deere Classic. So it's gonna be fun in a little bit, but we do have some good events this week. We are in the prime season, like you said. This is major season. This is the time to shine. This is when all the stars come out to play. And it was, man, what a great PGA Championship. I'm sure for you it was it will go down in the history books forever and ever. Your grandkids will be telling their grandkids about it, but for just a normal viewer that wasn't making 150K or 130K, it was a great time too. Just watching the great golf. Victor was ballsing up and Brooks couldn't miss a putt, when he needed to. The guy was clutch city. Had a few breaks go his way or not. There was some very close calls where he was on the precipice of going in a bunker or just, in some really bad spots. But you need those kind of things to get through, and I think he would have done it anyway if it wasn't even for those good breaks.
I really liked the challenge of the course this week. And what I mean with that, obviously on Saturday, there was weather conditions, which made it even extra challenging, and the scores were super, super. I always get confused. Do you say the scores were low? Because low in golf is technically good.
The scoring average was low. The scores were high.
The scores were high. The average was low, right?
It was difficult.
That's the point. It was very challenging. But I thought from our standpoint, in terms of betting and handicapping golfers, it actually helped because I was able to almost fade guys with more confidence that if you saw someone was struggling with something, they weren't going to figure it out on the course this week, right? Like that was kind of the point. And the guys who are, playing well here or there, maybe they're just struggling a little bit, maybe around the green or what have you, were the type of guys that were able to figure it out and have a good result come the end of the week Sunday. But the most impressive thing, obviously, is Brooks. I mean, he truly put on a dominant performance. And what I thought was most interesting was his demeanor when they asked him about LIV and how he almost, it's almost as if he's looking to open the door to bridging the gap, which – obviously Brooks isn't going to be the one to solely do it himself, but it does make it interesting when a guy is clearly one of the best golfers in the world, showing up to every major and competing and not playing on the Premier Tour.
Yeah, no, he would be a great Brooks the Bridge, just kind of doing his thing. And it does show you how the LIV has taken away from what we get on a daily basis or a weekly basis from the quality of golf. Like there are some studs. There were so many they took some major winners, and Brooks being probably the guy outside of Cam Smith, most likely at the Masters every year. But yeah, for him, Brooks in difficult conditions, it's a match made in heaven, and If you're having a difficult time scoring in DFS and betting and all sorts of things, go over to rotoballer.com. Make sure that you can get yourself out of the rough like Brooks did last week by just following me and Spencer on Twitter and Joe Nicely. Tee Off Sports is Spencer's hashtag handle. And over at rotoballer.com, we've got all the things you could wish for. We've got premium articles there for you guys. We've got the optimizer. We've got Spencer's model downloadable and available to you. It's one of the best in the industry, and you can do it with whatever you want. You can modify it in any way you want, and it's all yours for the week or the month. Or if you're an annual subscriber, it's yours for the year pretty much every week. I've got my showdown model that's been fine-tuning some projected ownership stuff during the showdown weeks and the rounds. So that's been fun. And I've got my Rainmaker model that we'll be sharing here that you guys can grab in the Discord when we are done with this. So lots to be enjoyed over at rotoballer.com. Use code MANIAC for 10% off. We've got weekly and annual subscriptions. So go grab yourselves like that today. So Joel, let's get into it, man. We've got this week's event, the Charles. I am going to have a nightmare with this name this week because I just can't say it. The Charles Schwab Challenge. It sounds like Irish wristwatch. Try to say that fast as well. But we got the CSC, and it's, like you said, not an elevated event, but it is got some big names. We've got some Scotty Schefflers, Tony Finau's, Victor Hovland's, Max Homer's, Sungjae Colin, Jordan. But he's not a Rainmaker, so we don't really talk about him on this podcast. But Rainmaker Runways, we've got a premium event. What are you kind of thinking heading into the week?
Well, that's kind of what I was referencing earlier. Since Live happened and all those guys left the PGA Tour, these non-majors or totally elevated events the fields have really gotten extra watered down. And this is now that kind of swing of the year where even these events are still getting, like you mentioned, some other names, some of the top tier. It doesn't feel as much of a JV tournament as we had been seeing in these other events, which is exciting. It should make for a fun week for us this week. The challenge here for our purposes is, as we saw at the PGA Championship last week, well, of course, Brooks is a top guy and Hovland's up there, but Cam Davis was one of the optimal guys to be in your lineup, and he wasn't someone from a Rainmaker perspective we were putting in an optimal lineup.
Yeah.
So we are seeing some of these guys being able to get up and compete and being in these lineups, and it makes for an interesting decision-making to make from a Rainmaker perspective of, do you want to go out and play an optimal lineup? You probably don't need to. You probably want to play 3 or 4 of the top guys, but I think being able to pick someone mid-tier that can get you in the top 10 and help you win is part of the equation.
Yes, I think that is the case because I was thinking, Cam Davis, Kurt Kitayama, those kind of guys that just shot up the leaderboard towards the end of the week that are very affordable and kind of in the 50 to 75 to 1 range on the betting board. So there's always going to be those kind of guys that show up. And if you are in a big contest, you need to get different and you need to try and shoot for those kind of golfers that can really make your lineups unique, because we've got 5 golfers only. So that makes it already one less than DFS, where you can, get a million dupes. And everyone wants to know that they're going to be playing Scotty, Rahm, and a few other guys that are like the top tier. So I do agree, 3 might be the magic number, because that way you can keep rotating in those best guys. You don't have to lay the jam on thick on your toast. You can just spread it out nicely and then use some nice crappy butter to kind of fill in the edges, and just, some Cam Davises and Tyrrell Hattons and Sungjae Ims or whatever, some cheaper guys to kind of give you a bit more of a reach in your contest selection without going 4 studs and a dud essentially, or a pivot, So I think it is interesting. It's something that you have to consider. And I try to do that kind of situation. The reason I'm wearing my clown wig is because I sold to Scotty Scheffler and bought Jason Day and Matt Fitzpatrick and Shane Lowry, trying to just get myself basically a whole nother lineup worth of guys that I really felt good about going into the week. This I did before I realized that Jason Day, that press conference was a red flag immediately, and I'd bought too many of him already. So I just knew for the long run it was going to be the case. Holy cow. How are you that? I don't know. I don't understand how he is just that, not lazy, but lacking energy, or how do you not manage to get it out there? Like, screw the Byron Nelson presses and stuff. Get the hell to Rochester and go and walk the golf course at least, or hit some chips on the golf course or something. Like, how do you just not play on a golf course like that?
So let me ask you this: how much? And this is me just speculating. I have no insights or anything, but how much do you attribute that lack of hunger for him, for lack of a better word, to basically him coming off a win and having a bit of a win hangover, and him kind of being like, I think if he came off a 15th or a 20th, and he was still looking for another win, do you think he would have came and been more prepared and been more hungry this week? That's not the case.
A second would have been perfect, because he wouldn't have had all the obligations and emotions and crap that he had to deal with, because he's been just ripping off, top 20s like crazy. And I don't think that's taken away from his next week, so he's just been crushing it. Sweet Spot DFS in here, congratulating Joel on the big week. Congrats, Joel, once again. We'll keep saying it. We got Darbo took down a GPP as well a little 2 weeks ago or so. So we got some studs in the chat and studs on the camera. And then you got yours truly wearing the brightly colored wig because I deserve it. But, Jason Day probably should have worn this wig too. I don't understand how it took him that long to get out there and just see the course. I don't think he was unmotivated. I think he was trying to protect himself from himself by burning out. I think he's learned his lesson, that he's obviously got a fatigue level that's not necessarily where it once was. And I think he's trying to protect his energy levels and mental capacity and all sorts of stuff like that, which I feel like in a majors week, you can kind of throw that into the wind, throw that out and just.
Yeah. I kind of think of it also though, as like you said, because it's a major week, there is no shortcut. It's a major week. You got to take extra precautions, extra steps, make sure you are fully prepared. I would understand taking the shortcut if it was this week was the next week and he came off a win and it was the Charles Schwab and it wasn't a major and he kind of lollygagging. That's more understandable. But with these majors, it's like, you get up for the Super Bowl. You can't take these lightly. So I agree. That was pretty disappointing.
Yeah. There is one major like the Masters that I think you can do that at. If you've seen the course, you've been around there, you can do that there. Not this golf course. This was so nuanced. You needed to know everything about this place before you teed off. So very disappointed in Jason Day. I still like his long-term prospects. We'll get to him there. But yeah, very disappointing. We'll see what happens. Matty Fitzpatrick, also very disappointing. So let's dive in, Joel. We got a premium contest this week. Let's get this banner out of the way. And we will start talking about some guys that are the highest priced. Scotty Scheffler, 194.77, going as of Sunday night, last night. Going into this week, I think that price is probably going to be going up a little bit. I don't know why you'd want to ever sell a Scotty Scheffler card unless you want to wear a wig on a podcaster next week. But he's up there. He's sitting around $2. John Rahm's price tag has pretty much dropped by $20 post-major, which seems to be the case. He's a major guy. See his price really climb before the week of, and then it kind of falls down. So anything about at the top board here, we got the two guys way ahead. Rory's now dipped into in less than $100. So talk to me about what you're kind of noticing at the top of the board, and then we'll kind of filter on this week's field here shortly.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, as always, is you're going to see the most, or we're seeing the most movement in guys who are playing, obviously, right? The biggest thing to keep in mind, as I mentioned last week, I was planning to start selling off a lot of my roster around this time of year because I think this is still time you can get some value for them. But I don't think it makes sense to, from a selling standpoint in ReignMakers, it makes more sense. You sell your card on the best timing for the card rather than the best timing for you, right? Just because I want to start selling now doesn't mean it's a prime market for John Rahm this week, right? Because John Rahm's not playing. So the thing I'm going to maximize value on John Rahm, I'm not. So I'm not going to probably sell John Rahm this week. I'll wait till a tournament he's playing. He looks like he's a good value, and I'll get a better return. And this week I'll prioritize guys that I can get something more for. That also doesn't mean I'm not going to play this week. So now my catch-22 is who can I maximize value by selling? And, the thought process, if you want to compare it to DFS, is like selling the chalk, right? Guys who are going to be overvalued by the public. And then playing value guys that maybe not everyone's overvaluing that I can get at a discount and still compete with this week.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I will defend my decision to sell Scotty because I felt like that was me getting off of him, trying to be different, just I thought his putting and bunker play would really let him down this week. Or last week, it didn't. His ball striking was good enough that he wasn't in far too many bunkers. Every time he was in a bunker, it was a bit of a mess. So, but it was hardly ever. And then he's putting, he obviously gained strokes putting the week after I sold him. So that was fun to see. But he's going now to another course in Texas on bent grass greens. Scotty Scheffler. I think he's obviously the clear favorite here. As many Scotty Schefflers as you can find, I think, have to be in your lineup. He's what? 9 events, 9 top 12s, 2 wins.
Yeah, I mean, and the beautiful thing about Scotty Scheffler, which is different from DFS, the highlight for Reignmakers is, in this field, in this event, in this tournament, what's his floor? Worst case, if he goes out and has a bad week, right? What's good? Worst case is what, 20th? That's worst case possible.
12th, right? Essentially.
12th probably closer. So
yeah,
the point would be saying that is, this week, especially playing a guy like Scotty, even if he doesn't go out and win the tournament, like you said, we only play 5 guys. There's a number of these guys like Spieth, what have you, that you can't even play in your lineup.
Yeah.
Scotty's a guy that it's hard to envision not at least giving you some sort of return on value if you play him this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's a must play. Unfortunately, he's really expensive, that makes a lot of sense that he is. So it's going to be fun. Yeah. Do you want to actually chat about this real quick before we really dive into the board? These franchise leaderboard bucks are such a hidden gem of Reignmakers. I've gotten at least $15 every week since starting. So I've noticed that too, because I didn't realize I was making money off owning these cards. And the reason Genesis cards, the ones that have the nice background in the rear, the nice fairway, they get you 5 times franchise points. And, you get different franchise points for each different rarity. If you get a rookie, you get double points as well. So those Genesis points really accumulate, and you can start, just like Darbo's saying, if you find yourself inside, I think the top 2,000, you start making some money every week. So that's the nice part about owning those more expensive cards is you can start making up for them each week if you play your cards right, so to speak, and pick, okay, is this approach booster set or whatever times 1 going to be worth it if it's only 2/3 of the price of a Genesis, which is going to be giving you 5 times the amount of points, and it still keeps that kind of value. But I don't think the points pays out that much unless you're at the top. But it is nice to think about, if you got a close call between the 2 cards, those Genesis packs definitely give you the most bang for your buck. Are you into that stuff at all, Joel?
I'm not. I got out of it intentionally. Maybe it was a mistake, but I'll give you I had a thought process behind it. The reason I went out of it, and I'm still getting the franchise points. I don't really follow or track it.
Yeah.
Was because early on they were it was a smart move by DraftKings. They were advertising it. And right when I was ready to move cards and make some sales, I was like, oh, well, let me keep these guys because I want to get these franchise points. And so I held on to guys, and they lost a ton of value over the couple of weeks I held on to them. And if I had just sold them, I probably would have done much better. So I didn't want to decide my roster based on winning franchise points. So I wanted to just make my roster decisions regardless of franchise points. And whatever I have and I accrued with franchise points, great, but I'm not going to make roster decisions based on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a definite tertiary market. You've got the contest, I think, is what you're kind of really looking to make your most money on. Then you want to resale value of a card, and then the franchise points. It's more like a little bit of a dividend that just comes by owning a nice card. That's not necessarily that much, but it is nice at the end of the day. So it's an interesting question, and I'm glad Darbo brought it up because I think this week was, as of today, they had the PGA Tour Championship. They labeled it really weird in the thing, but it was today at 10 Eastern this morning. So we'll see what happens there and see where you landed up on the leaderboard. So interesting stuff. But we've got some Tony Finau sitting at $97. Victor Hovland sitting at $77. That was a great purchase if you bought him last week. I think that was really looking nice. Makes a lot of sense. And then your boy with the clown wig sitting here with Max Homer all over his face, just Yoki Max Homer everywhere. And I'm trying to get out of my hair. I'm trying to get out of my eyelashes, and I just can't. The more I try and like scrape Max Homa away from my vision, he just gets worse off the tee. He just gets worse just in general. And now he's sitting at about half the price of what he was when the Masters was around. So I don't know. I'm almost going to like potentially even land up buying more Max Homa just so I can sell half of him at LACC in a month's time. Because I think his price has to go up by the time that major rolls around.
I'm in a Max Homa pickle like you are in that, me. I love Max Homa. I think he is on the rise. I think he's one of the best players. He's obviously not playing his best golf right now. And so I feel bad continuing to promote him because he's not playing his best golf. I don't want people to lose. Yeah. But in the long run, I do think we haven't seen Max Homa's best golf yet. I do think we're going to see him improve and play a lot better. I do think it's coming. I can't predict the future, so proceed at your own risk. The other thing I'll say about Max Homa in terms of selling his card for ReignMakers, he's probably not going to go down much more than he is right now.
No.
Right? I feel like the value is still at worst plateaued, and I would think, us both liking him and think he's going to play better, that value will go up over the course of the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, Darbo's saying he'd want the to go down by $10 more before he invests in him. It's a fine line because I think one good performance, especially with the US Open on the edge of everybody's mind, if they start seeing Max trending in the right direction, I think, you might have missed your boat to buy low. But also at the same time, if he has a clunker again this week with even more egg yolk in the eyes, then he's probably going to be dipping into the 50s, and then it's a good time to buy with 3 weeks to go before the US Open. So I think he's playing Memorial. I think he's also playing I actually have it. I checked it out. So he's got – I don't think he's playing the RBC Canadian. Let me pull this up here. He's playing the Memorial, obviously, the US Open, and then he's at the Travelers the week after. But nothing too crazy since. There's some guys that have committed to the RBC, like Sam Burns, Tommy Fleetwood, some other guys that aren't playing this week. But, you can check all of that stuff. I've got that in my model that I'll be dropping in the Discord. So it's just perusing those goddamn Twitter accounts like a psycho, like a crazy ex-girlfriend, trying to find your golfers on these Twitter profiles. But it is what it is. Anyway, so of those three, Tony, Victor, and Max, chicken, beef, or egg yolk, which one of those three are you liking, Joel?
Listen, Victor was really impressive. I think Victor's starting to develop a reputation for playing up to the big tournaments, right? He's been great in the majors.
Yeah.
It's hard to think that he plays down outside. He just thinks, this could be another week, especially in a weaker field where he could have a really good showing. Of those three, I think Victor would be my play right now. But the biggest takeaway I'm looking at this, even with how much he's priced up right now, I think Scotty is just so much better and safer than everyone else that if the question was, Scotty and cheaper guys versus getting maybe two of these mid-tier guys, I think I'd rather go Scotty and cheap, just how well he's playing.
I agree. I think so too. But holy cow. The thing is, outside of Tony, and Victor, you can buy three other guys, for the price of Scotty, which is interesting. And you have to. You're going to, you got to fill 5 lineup spots, right? So if you're just getting started and watching the show for the first time, that's potentially a way to go to get your foot in the door. But I do think Joel is correct in saying you might, in this contest and this format, you have to spend money to make money, unfortunately. But if you don't want to spend $194 on a Scotty, you don't have to make him your captain. Go grab him in the core market and just toss him in there as a core. I do think that's one way to get exposure to him, and then you buy these other guys. And you get different too, because his floor is pretty high, but his ceiling is also it's pretty high, but he's not winning. Like I just saw him now, it's 4-1. He's not winning 4 times, every 1 in every 4, basically, so but he's close.
You also will find there's plenty of good strategy in that route too, because you would logically, he'll probably also be one of the most popular captains. So it's a way to get different, right? If you play someone else like captain, lower ownership, It's where you can avoid having to worry about rarity tier numbers and duplicating lineups. Captain spot someone else, like you said. Scotty can get a third place. It's still a great week, right? You happen to get the winner in your captain, and then you're in great shape.
Yeah, I totally agree. Somebody that I'm kind of back on again, and I'm, I wish I kind of sold a few of him going into the week, was Sungjae Im. Him and majors just don't go hand in hand. I don't think he's a major guy. I think there's too much pressure on the line for him to win them to kind of miss military service. So that's interesting there, but he's been playing great golf. And now he's priced at $59 again. And this guy plays, like we've said, Joel, this guy is like a free square in a bankroll builder lineup or even just in normal lineups. He's consistently solid, and he's playing in a lot of contests, in a lot of events. So you're going to get some major equity and run off from Sungjae's card. Colin is sitting around the same price as him. Do you see again, Colin gaining strokes short game in a major? He's done it both majors so far. He's gained short game now. It's just what he does. And then now everyone's going to get all antsy about him. Oh, you see him gaining putting, and now he's going to be going to a normal event that's not a major, and he's going to crap it down his leg again. So what are we doing with Colin? What are we doing with Sam Burns and Tommy Fleetwood in this range, Joel? $41 for Sam, $39 for Tommy Fleetwood.
Well, I'll start with, I think I like what you said about Sungjae. My thing with Sungjae is this. I think Sungjae is one, other than Scotty, one of my highest confidence guys to get, let's call it top 15. Like, he competes. He's good. He's consistently good. I think a good result you get from him. But of all these other guys up here next to, outside of Scotty, he's also the least likely to win, I think. He just doesn't have that win equity that they actually pull the whole tournament out. But to get a consistently good result is there. So depends how you're playing it. If you're looking to build out your roster, you're looking for a guy to fill in, a safe, get you score. I think Sungjae's that guy. If you're looking just for a straight upside play, then I would probably look at one of these other guys. And I think there's some good options. I think my favorite of this bunch is Tommy Fleetwood. He's just been playing some really consistently solid golf over the course of the year. This should be a pretty good fit for him in terms of a course. The price is right? He's not too expensive. It's a little high for Fleetwood, but it's affordable. So all these guys, I like Fleetwood.
I think I'm out on Fleetwood. If you're looking at a guy for upside, if you go take a look at Tommy's track record on a Sunday, it's just he goes backwards every Sunday. Like he does so well. If these Rainmaker contests were live, Tommy Fleetwood would be a savage on live because he's sitting inside the top 10 all the time after Saturday, all the time. Then Sunday rolls around and then something goes wrong with his game. He was crushing it with the putter last Sunday, but couldn't hit a freaking iron to save his life, apparently. So just something on a Sunday doesn't seem to make Tommy, he doesn't, to me, I would put him in the same bucket as Sungjae, essentially. But he is priced a much, a few bucks, $14 less than Sungjae, $20 less than Sungjae. So there's, definite value there, I would say, for his consistency and solid golf. So also something I wanted to mention about Max is he's a good long-term play still because he's third in FedEx Cup points. I think, yes, he sucks right now, but he's banked those points and he's going to be going all the way to the Tour Championship. He's got so many goddamn points right now. He's most likely going to be inside the top 10 by the end of the Tour Championship or once it rolls around. So I think that's still something to look forward to from Max's perspective. Let's talk about some other guys now, scooting down the board. We're starting to get into the range now where these aren't going to be your core plays, but you can also buy a few of these guys and put them in your lineups because they're cheap and they're different and not everyone's going to want to play them. And put it on your record now. Someone between Sam Burns and Russell Henley on this screen is going to be inside the top 5 by the end of the week. The chances are pretty good, so, or say top 10. Let's go with top 10, and that's what you're kind of looking for is you got 5 guys in your lineup. If you can get one of these dudes that is a nobody-ish, middle of the road kind of guy, they're going to be in there. So let's talk about Taylor Moore, Siwoo Kim, Chris Kirk, Denny McCarthy sitting in the $26 range, $20 range. if I'm picking anyone, I'm going with Chris Kirk here. I think I really like Chris Kirk a lot at these shorter, difficult golf courses that require some good short game. I like his upside. He's also won a tournament, so his FedEx Cup points are 14th in the field. Love to see that. And I've advocated for Taylor Moore already, so I like him a lot. I won't be buying more of him. I've already got enough of him, so I like him too. And then Chris Kirk would be my second guy in this range that I'm kind of looking to purchase if you're looking to round out some holes in your roster. Which chicken and which beef are you kind of feeling in this range here, Joel?
So I like Kirk and I like Moore a lot too. I'm aligned there. The guy I like here that you didn't mention is Denny McCarthy. I think Denny McCarthy's been playing pretty consistently. He's more recently shown some good form, and in this field, this is the type of tournament where you could see Denny rise to the top.
Yeah. And he's like the opposite of Tommy, where he'll be out of the mix entirely. And then before you know it, he's kind of just racing up the leaderboard on a Saturday and kind of doing what Joel's doing and just moving up that leaderboard, getting out of the crappy Wi-Fi room and moving off to another place that's a lot more receptive. I'll keep rolling here on the way down. Tom Hoagie is somebody that's just really peculiar to me. I invested in him too much when he was at a high price tag and kind of just not necessarily brought the heat over the last little while, although he is really, really impressive on the ball striking front there on approach. I don't think he's safe. He provides a bunch of upside though. Taylor Montgomery's his price has gone down since he was crushing top 20s like crazy to start off the year, but also a high risk play. I don't know how I like him around a golf course like this that's low scoring. Pretty much prefer him at a birdie fest where you can just roll the putts in. Someone I do not mind getting my hands on right now. And you can see since the Mexico Open, he was $13 there and he's sitting around about $19.75 now. Steven Jaeger, he's been striking the ball tremendously and loses putting in 3 out of the 4 rounds. And then one of them, he gains strokes putting and then flies up that leaderboard. So he's a great showdown play. He's also a great investment from a ReignMakers perspective because he's cheap. And I think at some point he's going to pop. So there's a lot to like from Steven Jaeger's perspective. I think he can absolutely get things done, especially if the putter obliges. It hasn't necessarily lately, but all it takes is 2 rounds out of the 4 for Jaeger to gain strokes putting versus just the 1 out of the 4 for him to kind of pop. So he's really been showing some promise. Was he in? He wasn't in your lineup for the winning lineup, was he, Joel?
He wasn't the winning lineup, but I like Jaeger a lot. I'm with you on that. Jaeger is one of those guys that when he finds a week where he finds a hot putter, he's going to win a tournament. I mean, he has been striking the ball so well. Obviously, the putter's weakness. He reminds me a bit. I mean, not the same, a lower tier version of Colin Morikawa, right? I mean, week in and week out, consistently with the ball striking. Obviously, he struggled with that putter, but when he does find a hot putter one week, it's going to be hard to beat him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, Jaeger's a great upside play. I want to say Emiliano Grillo, but not really. Grillo has been finding some putting success lately again. So I don't mind Grillo, but there are some definite guys that I want to target in this range. And one of them is Christian Bezuidenhout. Bet him outright. And he's back on bent grass greens. And I'm going to say this with some reservation, but he's turning himself into a really solid, and I want to, the word elite is on the tip of my tongue, but really impressive iron player right now. He is 5th in this field of Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Colin Morikawa, Max Homa, Tom Hoagie, Sungjae Im. 5th in the field in strokes gained approach over the last 24 rounds. Since the Players, he's lost strokes on approach twice in 18 rounds. And he's averaging 1.2 strokes per round. So it's just incredible. And when he's on bent grass greens, he's the best bent grass greens putter in the field. And his accuracy off the tee since his iron plays got better has also kind of improved. If you go take a peek at his recent accuracy, that's kind of trending in the right direction. This golf course, he's got great course history at. Finished 15th here last year. And if you take a look at Harbour Towns, Wildlife Country Clubs, all those kind of comp courses, he's also great around those. So there's a lot of stars aligning for my boy Bezzy. He is a casual $14 as of last night. What are your thoughts on Bez?
Love Bez. I think Bez is one of my favorite. We'll call him a value play of the week. From like you can get him pretty cheap. Last week at the PGA Championship, he was actually pretty bad with his putter, which is out of character for him. He's typically a good putter. So
and it was one round.
It was one round, but it cost him for obviously you look at it, he's going to have a pretty negative, and that's what probably made him miss the cut, obviously.
Yeah.
Because his ball striking was great. It wasn't the ball striking off the tee could have some improvement, but it's not atrocious. So the moral of the story is we expect Bez to be a good putter. More often than not, he is a very good putter. He corrects that and continues to strike the ball like he's been over the last 2 months. I think he can compete to win the whole tournament.
Yeah. I totally agree. At 90-1, I love that call. At $14, I haven't taken a peek at what it is right now, but I love Bezzy's price tag. It's kind of really affordable, and this golf course isn't a long golf course. It rewards accuracy over distance a little bit more. You can have the Jason Kokrak route, but that's the highway not a lot of people can get on. But the normal way to win this event is kind of just keep it in the fairway, hit your ball to a reasonable distance and make those putts, and his bogey avoidance rates are great. I just love what he's up to. And that ball striking, this ball striking is so exciting. It's so goddamn exciting. Like his irons are great right now. So
hold on. Before we move off Bez, you at least used to have a personal relationship with him. You know him a little bit. Are you able to point, I guess, for lack of a better word, what has caused his improved ball striking over the last 2 months? Did he change a swing coach? Is there something
swing coach
that's got him? It's a new swing coach.
He changed the coach at the Players, and you can literally see when it happened. It's insane. Like we found out at the Players, he changed his swing coach, and now since then, it's been 18 rounds since then of strokes gained. So he's got another 6 rounds to get that 24 up even more. So he's got some leftovers that are like rottening the pile there that are still from a while ago when he wasn't necessarily striking it as well over the last 24 rounds. So there's a lot to be desired from Bezzy's side of things. And like you said, there are so many good iron players that are bad putters, and he's the complete opposite now. Yeah. So he needs to get that figured out and just keep rolling. And there is a case to be made about just draining par putt after par putt versus birdie putt after birdie putt. That can kind of get in your head a little bit. But still, it doesn't hurt to be very good on both. So I mean, if there's a freaking first class seat that I want to be in, it's on the Bezzies, And from a long term perspective too, I think he's got incredible upside, and the price is right now. So I've been buying my fair share of him, and then another person I've been buying a lot of has been Brendan Todd. Before this week too, course history. He leads the field coming into the last 24 rounds in short game, so around the green and putting. He's top 10 accuracy off the tee, and he's got incredible course history. I think he's finished third and T8 in his last 2 starts. So loves this golf course. He's playing some solid golf. His game suits this course too. The course history makes sense, and he's $13 for a Brendan Todd. So, I think you have talked me out of buying guys in this range because they don't provide, the necessary upside that you're looking for in a Rainmaker lineup. But I do think these 2 dudes definitely do that.
I agree with you. I agree. These 2 guys, I think, have upside this week. I think this week, especially both guys, actually. I mean, Todd, you're right. The way you said it is that very he's when you think about Todd's game, this is the type of course you want to see him on, right? This is a very good fit. He's got those 2 top 10s. He can do it. And for Todd, even he's playing pretty well. We see Todd go on runs where he gets a bunch of miscuts in a row. His form is not like superb, but it's pretty good. So I think put him now on a course where it suits his game really well. I think you can see a really nice finish.
Yeah, I agree too. And Darbo's got us wondering as no Cam Davis love. Yes, it's coming. There's just 2 other guys that I'd like more than him this week because I think Davis is popular. I'm assuming his price has kind of skyrocketed a little bit since the T4 last week. all that jazz. Cam Davis, he's a guy that was really struggling leading up into the Players, and him and Bezzy kind of had a turning point at the Players, both. So he's been playing great golf since. I had a Minwoo Lee. He was in your winning lineup, so I'm sure you've got. Was he
Minwoo or Davis?
Cam Davis.
Davis was, yes. Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Was. Yep.
Yeah, no,
he was in. So I had a lineup in first and second place in the tournament, and he was in both lineups.
Yes, yeah. That eagle on the par 4, the putter finally woke up. I had a Minwoo matchup, Davis over Minwoo, because Minwoo's approach game is just atrocious. It's so bad.
It's crazy because Minwoo is so good at everything else. It's just his approach game. And it's weird. You see guys that are the opposite. We often see guys that are really great approach players and they struggle elsewhere. But Minwoo is the opposite. Minwoo drives well, putts well. He's good everywhere. He just his approach game, he can't figure that out, which is it's like the inverse of what we normally talk about. But I think once he does, once Minwoo pays enough to steal Bezzy's swing coach, then he'll get
Yeah, exactly. And if he could just give Bezzy like 10 yards of distance, that'd also be ideal. Just a little give and take there. I think that would be an ideal golfer, Christian Minwoo Lee note. So we'll see what if we can build a golfer in the PGA and make him like those two guys. So those are two interesting players there. Someone else I want to mention who's also got really impressive form recently is Russell Henley. I think this golf course suits his game really nicely as well. The only thing with Russell is he's kind of adopted this new strategy where he like plays twice a month. Like he doesn't get on these runs or anything. He just plays whenever he feels like it right now. And you want guys that are going to be playing a lot if you're going to be owning them in ReignMakers. And Russell's not necessarily doing that, but he's also only $15. So what are your thoughts on Russell? I mean, he's kind of getting back on track after a bit of a hiatus since Mayakoba.
Well, my first thought on Russell, there's like a tier of guys. I'm going to do 1 second here to compare ReignMakers to DFS from this perspective. There's a tier of guys in like the 9K range, 8 to 9K range, that this week are really hard to play because you clearly want to get one or two of the top range. And then when you do that, you got to kind of fill out your roster. Yeah. So from a DFS perspective, he's really not on my radar just because he's not in that top tier. But from a ReignMakers perspective, right, it's very, very, very different strategically. And his price for what, if you were to look most weeks at what a guy priced the way he is priced for DFS would cost to roster in ReignMakers, it would be much higher. So his price per value in this tournament, I think for ReignMakers is good. So if that's one of the guys that you want to fill out your roster with, I certainly think he has top 15, top 10 upside. You can go get him. It's not like in DFS where you got to use up all your salary. You can't make your roster work because you can make your roster work with him, and he's affordable. So I won't be playing him in DFS, but in ReignMakers, I think he might be worth a look.
I think so too, and that is the fun part. It's almost the opposite because you can't afford him in DFS because he's like too expensive, and he's underpriced. Yeah, so it's like, oh, okay, I'll go all in, kind of not all in, but grab myself a few of him at a very discounted price. Yeah. So exciting stuff there from Russell. I think that's a great point too. I'm just going to scroll down the board, Joel, and kind of see if anyone catches your attention as we're going. Adam Svensson is out of the tournament this week, so please don't go and buy him thinking you're going to roster him this week. I bought a few Brian Harmons. I kind of mentioned earlier. I wasn't planning on playing him this week. I'm hoping to sell a few of him. I don't know what his price is getting up to, but I guess I bought him last week and they were like $15.75 and now it's 11 after he absolutely nuked his price at the PGA. But his course history is so solid. And I think if you're looking for a long-term flip or a short-term flip of a golfer, is finding a golfer that's got really good course history at the next week's event. I think people really like to cling on to course history for a golfer's price. You can kind of see how it fluctuates as a golfer goes from event to event. So Brian Harmon's got really good course history. I think I'm pretty much going to make my money back. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to be making more than what I bought them for after a clunker at the PGA. But are there any other guys kind of in this range that you kind of have your eye on? Maybe Justin Suh, Hayden Buckley.
One other pretty affordable guy that I'll put up people I just like that I think he strikes the ball really well. Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard actually had a good run. His form is good. listen, he's a lower end guy. He's like the last guy in your roster. He's not someone I would say you have to go out and get and put in your rosters. The best probably scenario to go get Mark Hubbard is probably the one where it's not your main lineup, but it's a secondary lineup. Maybe it's when you're putting in bankroll builder or something like that, where he's one of the guys you want to fill your roster with because he's not overly expensive. I do think you can get a pretty good result from him. So that's how I would kind of target, rostering Hubbard.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think so too. I think he's an interesting purchase. And then, if you're looking for an upside play that's going to potentially gain some value, Carson Young is out there just lapping the field in a US Open qualifier right now. And he's, as of last night, $790. So he's very affordable there too. And he's showing some pop. The guy's been playing some good golf lately. We'll see what he can get up to. Ryan Palmer's always good in Texas too. So, but these are all just random guys that now I don't necessarily have nearly as much conviction of. And they're kind of more of a long-term purchase than anything else. So let's filter out of this and find a few guys that aren't playing this week and talk about them before we kind of get out of here, taking a look at some events that are coming up, some guys that are potentially on our radar that aren't playing this week that, you can get some good value on now before the price goes up. Yes, Ed in the house saying loves the hair. Unfortunately, the reason the hair is on is because I'm a clown and it is the facts of the matter. So what are we doing, Joel? I think, I was taking a peek earlier. Let me get rid of some of these columns here and pull up the next little bit of a schedule here. We've got the Memorial Tournament and the RBC Canadian. We've got some guys doing their thing at these events. So I know we've got like Rory is going to be playing all three heading into the US Open. So we've got some Rory love going on here where he's going to be playing the Memorial, the RBC Canadian, and the US Open. And he's also signed up for the Travelers. So he's potentially you're going to get a run of 4 Rorys in a row there after this week. I'm curious as to what your thoughts are. I sold my Rory card. Surprise, surprise. He finished inside the top 10 or whatever. Just, is he going to be on the up? Is his game turning around? Is it, he's going to courses that I feel like suit his game, Memorial and the US Open. But thoughts?
Generally, obviously, Rory has as much upside as anybody. But I generally think Rory is a little bit overrated. So with that knowledge, the way I think about Rory for ReignMakers is what's the value of his price? As of now, right now, I think, is it $100 in the rare?
Yeah. $99. It's the lowest it's been, I think ever. So,
and that's what I was going to say. I was like, I don't really think it's too much. I think that's probably the fair price. So if you're a Rory believer, then now's the time to go buy him because you'll get him for 4 weeks in a row. $100 is probably the fair price. You can play him for 4 weeks. If you're not a believer, I would probably wait until next week or even 2. Let's say if he has another good result, that price will go up a pretty good amount. So if you're not a believer, I think it's the play is to wait to sell, not sell now.
Yeah. No, I agree. If I was going to be spending high dollar on a golfer, it would be Jon Rahm. We're going to the Memorial, aka Jon Rahm's tournament, and Patrick Cantley's tournament. Both 2 guys with incredible track records there. I think those would be, if you're looking to kind of get a discounted Rory, Patrick Cantley, 2 top 10s now in his last 2 majors. And he started off really slow and kind of, the guy was absolutely crushing it on the ball striking front and just couldn't get anything rolling with the putter and around the greens, unfortunately. But he was solid. He's still doing good things for the price that he's at. He's $90 for Patrick Cantley rare. Whereas I think he's way more consistent than Rory McIlroy right now. And he's potentially got even more upside. I think he's finished, really up there towards the top of the leaderboard, a lot more than Rory this year. So I love Cantley's availability for you each week, all of that jazz. JT's price continues to plummet all the way down to a not so nice $69. Joel Hatton at $59. Cameron Young, oh my God, is that been the eggshells on my face with Max Homa and Cameron Young is just in abundance right now.
Well, I feel like, obviously they haven't been showing their greatest outings, but I feel like based on what we've seen in history, I know they're both young, but we've seen Cameron play really well, especially in big events. I feel like now's a good buy low opportunity for Cameron Young. You can
I
still do
think so.
57. I think by the end of this season, he'll be back up the tier above. So if you're still a believer, go get him now at 57 before that price goes back up again.
Yeah. 57 for Cam Young, and he's getting himself pretty much the same run as Rory. I think he signed up for the Memorial, the RBC, the US Open, and the Travelers. So those are some big events, and 3 of them are deluxe events, right? Those are all elevated. I think the Memorial is an elevated event.
Yep.
The US Open and the Travelers. I think those 3 are elevated. So after this week, you get 3 elevated events in a 4-week span, and he'll be playing another event in between that. So you're going to get some great utility out of him there. Jason Day is somebody, I think he's sitting in 5th in FedEx Cup points. The guy's been crushing it, and his price has gone down since the PGA. Like he just won a tournament and now he's less than $50. So I like Jason Day if I'm buying. I've obviously bought too much of him already, but I would still advocate for people to, if they are looking to purchase some guys that are going to be going on a go-forward basis, Jason Day. He's so consistent. If he just doesn't, unfortunately, winning a tournament is probably the worst case scenario for him the next week. It's almost like you got to sell him that week because it just seems like he's just not available after winning. But he won. Jason Day, in the winner's circle, Joel. So a lot to like there. Anyone in this kind of $40 range, $30 range, Sahith is interesting. He's been showing up a lot, making cuts at majors. I think he's going to go into the Midwest swing a little bit. I think I like his chances at birdie. We haven't really had a birdie fest for a while. I want to see Sahith on a course where he can let that driver just go everywhere and just luck box it from other fairways and all sorts of stuff. So anyone you got your mind on, anyone you got your eye on in particular over here?
Yeah, first thing I would agree with you on Sahith. I think people are still disrespecting him on his price. He was serviceable this week. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. And I keep going back to, for a guy with as many top 10s as he's gotten this season, I don't know why his price hasn't gone up. He has the upside. He is when he misses, he might miss. When he hits, he gets you that top 10, and that's what you need for these lineups to win. So at this price, I could still call him a value play. I love Sahith.
Yeah. Darbo's saying Sahith is too expensive. I disagree. I think now is the time to actually buy on him. His price has kind of been creeping up over the last while. The upside you get from this guy is crazy. And he makes birdies. He doesn't grade out well. Like my models hate him all the time, but I think he's just a baller, dude. He just gets it done. So I like him too. And then we've seen a massive price correction here on Wyndham Clark, all the way down at $33.77 now after popping at like close to $50 the week after winning a tournament. So I think if you are interested in buying a guy that's won a tournament, buy him the week after, unless your name's Byron Lindeque and you want to buy Jason Day going into the PGA Championship where he doesn't do a goddamn practice round. So anyway, any inklings on Wyndham Clark?
I like Wyndham Clark. As long as long term, Wyndham Clark's another one of those guys that seems like he should be a staple of all of your bankroll builders, right? He, of course, he won a tournament. He has upside, but even in these more loaded fields, he's been consistently getting you in the 20s, top 30s. His ball striking is really good. He just got a level of consistency that I like. I do think this price is a little high for him, but you can't beat that consistency. So if you like Wyndham Clark, I think he's fine to go get it 33.
Yeah, and he's also ranked 8th in the FedEx Cup. So that price is kind of baked in there, going to give you long run options going into the Tour Championship, which is basically, if you're holding a card going into the Tour Championship, that card just is most likely going to explode in value because there's only going to be 30 cards available for that tournament that week. Now, is it going to be I'm really curious, Joel. Let's actually talk about that a little bit because we've got a situation where you're going to be thinking about rostering these guys going into the Tour Championship. Are their prices going to really skyrocket enough to make up for the amount that they've decreased because people are trying to get rid of them because there's like 1 or 2 events left?
Well, I just pulled it up. There's 9 tournaments after the Tour Championship that you can still play in this. So there's still some tournaments. However, of all of them, they're all standard, which means it's the lowest payout type of tournament after Tour Championship. So not the biggest pools. And one of them is the Ryder Cup, which, is a pretty limited field. So it's not really a full tournament.
Is that Ryder Cup for ReignMakers, though?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. So, but it's a standard tournament. So it's
Okay.
low. It's the low payouts, but there's a tournament. So the tournament is not going to be the final week. However, here's one of the things to keep in mind about the Tour Championship, because I was thinking about that this week. Because, like you already said, by the time you get there, the field is going to be so small. The Tour Championship is going to turn into a lot of duplicate lineups. It just has to be. There's just not that many options of guys to play. So with that being said, it's going to turn into who can get, then the value of having a really low tier card is going to go way up, because people know they're going to be competing against the same cards because there's only option. Yeah. Listen, if you are good enough to win your way into, the World Championship or ReignMakers, stuff like that, obviously get your best roster you can and go after it. But if not, I honestly think, for me at least, my strategy is to actually sell everything at max value prior to that. And even leading into it, you might be able to get people in going after the Tour Championship to pay a pretty dollar your cards. And that doesn't even mean I won't go after the championship. That just means when Tour Championship week comes, I'm going to build a roster very, very, very much so targeted toward that event, meaning not going full chalk, trying to find ways to build something that won't be so chalky that other people will play and give myself a chance to compete.
Yeah. And by getting rid of your chalk, you kind of padding the bankroll in a way too, because you're getting rid of the popular plays for a profit and then playing a contrarian lineup at the same time, which is like a bit of a double dip. What I try to do with Scotty Scheffler, essentially. So I'll shoot you the wig if it doesn't work out for you, Joel, then you can wear it after the Tour Championship. But no, there is definite strategy, and you got to shoot your shot. I still have a few Scotties left, but I would have loved to have had him in that one extra lineup and see where it goes, especially going into this week. So I don't know, tough times. But just a little mention: Daniel Berger's been actually posting some swing videos on Instagram. You got to be a creeper to be a Rainmaker king, and Daniel Berger's been swinging. So keep an eye. I bought a few of Daniel Berger recently just to see what happens, because if he comes back, he's a top quality golfer. So lots to like from him there. Anybody else kind of that you want to talk about in this? I guess I don't even have the screen up, but anything else you want to talk about?
I thought Daniel Berger was a good one to bring up. I do think he's coming back soon. Again, you can get him for real cheap, and don't be discouraged. Right? He might come back in his first tournament, miss the cut, and not look good. Don't give up. Right? Give him 2 or 3 weeks. Then he finds his groove, and he gives you a good result. And you got him, in May 22nd for a fourth the price he'll be after he has one good result.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. So there's lots of. Darbo's asking if I bought one of his burger cards. I don't know. I like hamburgers, and it might have been the case. So, Joel, let's crush it this week, man. It's a good week to make some money. I need to get rid of this clown wig. I'll put on the maniac wig next week. Hopefully it's a good one. Bezzy, I think it's his week, man. He's been trending. It's time for him to pop. So if you guys aren't already, go check out everything at rotoballer.com. Use code MANIAC for 10% off. Follow me at The Model Maniac. Follow Joel at DraftMasterFlex on Twitter. And, feel free to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and, tell the friends about it. ReignMakers is the place to be. It's very addicting. Don't tell, people that have very addicting personalities about this stuff if you think it's going to be dangerous to them. I'm just joking, but everything in moderation, and be safe about it. But, Joel, thank you for joining me and taking care of the flight. Episode 8, we are starting to cruise, man. We're about double digits almost. So awesome stuff, friends. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you guys tomorrow night on my solo pod, and then Joel and I will be back next week to preview the Memorial Tournament. And we thank you for tuning in, and catch you guys later. Cheers.